Good morning, everybody. My name is Marta Zaharia, and I'd like to welcome you to 4D, Exploring Tactile Transitions. And because there's so many wonderful presenters here today, I don't want to take up any more time. I'm just going to introduce them by name, and then they can proceed with their workshop today. So I'd like to welcome Liz Duncan, Monica Estenberger, Anna Mart. I'm so sorry I'm so bad with names, please forgive me. I had it before. Hal Jesvik, Femke Krieger, Jude Nicholas, and Steen Winninson. So sorry for the names, but welcome everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Marta. It's always tricky when you've got names from different countries, but then when you have a long list of names from different countries, that's even worse. Good morning, everyone. How are you holding up? Hanging in there? Good, good. Welcome. Some of you will be aware that Jude Nicholas is a member of our project team. Jude is here at the conference, but unfortunately he's not available this morning. So we are going ahead without him. We hope we'll do him justice. And if there are questions for Jude, we will take note of those and pass them on to him afterwards. So thank you. I'm going to hand on to my colleague Stina, who is going to begin our presentation.
Thank you, Liz. Welcome to our workshop. So nice to see so many of you here. Our workshop is called Exploring Tactile Transitions, and we want to talk about our project today, the Tactile Transition Project. My name is Stine Vinsjansen, and I am from Statped in Norway. And I want to start with introducing you to this wonderful project team I have behind me. So first, we have Monica Estenberger, who is next to me. She is from Sweden and from the Swedish Resource Center for Deafblind Issues. Next to her, we have Femke Krieger. She's from the Netherlands and from Levenswonk Center. And then, next to Femke, or behind Femke, is Liz Duncan. She is from Deafblind UK. And next to Liz is Anne Marte Halskjelsvik. She is from Statped in Norway. And as Liz mentioned, Jude Nicholas is also a part of our project team, and it is supported by the Nordic Welfare Center. So let me start giving you a little overview of our workshop today. First, I want to start telling you a little bit about our project, the Tactile Transition Project, its purpose, and why it's a unique project. Then, I'm going to give the microphone to Femke. She's going to share a little bit about how the project started and how it has developed. Then, all of us, we want to present the results of our project and present it through quotes. At the end of the workshop, we would like to reflect upon what this might mean for people with deafblindness. Yeah. Just pause for a moment, because we've got people standing in the doorway. Would they like to come? Please come on in. Wow, make yourself comfortable on the floor, wherever you feel comfortable.
We know we're in trouble when you start coming up here.
That's the only place that looks like a
Yeah, maybe we'll join you on the stage.
You're very welcome. Yeah, so this is Stina speaking, and I will continue. So, the purpose of our project, as you can see on the screen, is to expand the understanding of the potential of the tactile sense. Also, to raise awareness of how people with acquired deafblindness use the tactile sense. And furthermore, we want to use this knowledge as part of the rehabilitation process for people with acquired deafblindness. And I want to say something about why this is a unique project. The Tactile Transition Project, it addresses a topic until now understudied in general and specific in the field of deafblindness and acquired deafblindness. It focuses not only on the sensory loss, but mostly on the sensory potential. Tactile Transition Project put the voice of people with acquired deafblindness at the core of the project, listening to their stories in the several national focus groups with studies in Norway, Sweden, England, and the Netherlands. The data from the focus groups has been analyzed through a newly created frame of reference, connecting 3 scientifically based models. It has been co-created and performed by an international project team, connecting the expertise of lived experience, professional support, and scientific research. Welcome. Come inside. I will now give the word to Femke. Yeah?
Yeah. Yes, this one is working too. Yes, I'm going down. Not only to meet you guys, but because then I can see something on the slides. Because those 3 slides I was not supposed to talk about. The upcoming slides were for Jude Nicholas. And because he is not with us, I'm taking over the best as I can and talk you through. But I need to see the slides. We decided, because Jude Nicholas is really the one who's setting up the scientific framework for this research project. And because there has been so little knowledge about the topic of this research project, it started with a lot of questions. And I think that's the one unique thing, and we talked about that earlier. I talked with some of you earlier during this conference about that. The unique thing of this project is it didn't start as a project. It didn't start as a research project. So there was no money involved at the beginning. Well, of course, time is money, but there was not an official project timeline to reach, etc. So there was free time to question, to talk, to have dialogue. And that was a great luxury, and I think that's the great power of this project. That in the beginning, a small group after the DBI conference in Aalborg 2017 started talking. And it was really the funny questions, like, how do you brush your teeth? How do you relax? And I still remember Jude Nicholas telling me that in the evening he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know, I'm watching television and it's like chewing gum for the eyes. And it was that kind of interaction and dialogue that made us understand more about the differences in our way of sensory perception. And that was the basis of this project, because we wanted to know more about sensory perception, exactly the tactile sensory perception in acquired deafblind people. So we took time to find common ground. And the common ground was the curiosity to know more about the tactile sense and what was happening inside the brains in the processing system when you are dealing with acquired deafblindness. That was the common ground. The common ground was not like, oh, let's do an inclusive research thing. That was the tool, that is the technique we used to get to this data we will discuss later on. And we very quickly decided it's about life stories. So it's not about research, it's not about professional expertise, it's about really connecting the tree to the real life stories. The real life stories are the basis. And surely acquired deafblind real life stories are the most important input in this research project. But it started with real life stories among the project group. So really sharing, really getting to know each other, and from there trying to focus. So this is a little background on how this project has started. And then it gives me the opportunity to go a little bit quick through what is an important element of this project, the scientific basis of it. So next slide, please, Tina. So I will not go through this completely because that is up to Jude Nicholas and he's not here. But we decided we did want to show you the slide to show you how we created a new scientific research model based on existing models. All of us you see here on stage, we didn't know a thing about those models, but we've learned a lot. And what we learned was basically there are 3 models, and Stine later on will very shortly explain each model when it comes to the quotes we will share with you. But basically, tactile transition is being, there's so many ways to enter into this huge topic. But as Jude guided us through and we discussed and created this project, we made a distinction between tactile awareness and tactile consciousness. And from there, we connected it to 3 scientific models. You see the somatosensory processing system model, the body representation system model, and the ecological system model. Big names. Very shortly, the first one is really about the sensory processing system, and then we focused obviously to the tactile sense. Body representation system model is really kind of connecting the first and ecological model. Why? Because it's about how you sense yourself, your body, in connection to the surrounding, but the focus is really on yourself. Very complicated model, very interesting and extremely important when it comes to deafblindness. Not only acquired deafblindness, but in general. And then finally the ecological model, which is really about the interactions with your surroundings. Because how you use your tactile sense is not only depending on yourself and your abilities, your skills, your knowledge, or whatever. It's also connected to morals, to norms in society, to what people around you accept and think works. So, for example, you know, if you're sitting next to someone, if I'm sitting on a chair and I want to know if somebody is next to me, how do I find out? I cannot just easily, you know, put my hand on you. Maybe in this conference I would. This is really lovely. Yesterday I was in this big #1 room and I thought like, okay, more people can come in, but yes. You're so welcome. Please find a place, make yourself comfortable. We're still at the beginning, explaining the background. So I was just saying, so how am I going to connect to the person next to me? I cannot easily just put my hand on someone in normal life. Maybe in this conference I would. So how would you do that? Well, then there are many tactile ways to do that. You can put your hand on the chair, see if it's a little bit bended. Maybe you can easily put your hand a little bit on the side, feel there is some warmth from a leg or whatever. So there are many ways to do it. While the easiest way would be to just put your hand somewhere, but that's socially not acceptable. So that's where the ecological system model is about. Next slide, Stine. Thank you. And then with these 3 models, we kind of took many markers inside the models. And again, this was an interaction within the project group. We have discussed it thoroughly through, but it has been Jude Nicholas who was really giving the basic information we needed to create this slide. And as you see, on top are 3 markers coming from the first model, the sensory processing model. And again, focused on the tactile sense. Then you see the 3 markers coming from the second model. That is more about body awareness, self-awareness. And then completely down, you see 4 markers on the last model. And what we did was, with those markers, we went to the transcripts of all the interviews that has been done. Stine will talk you through later. And we really tried to, can we find connections? Can we, if we listen really closely, read really closely to what people share with us, can we find something about these markers? Do they teach us by their normal life stories about these markers? So now I'll keep quiet and give you the mic again, Stine.
Thank you. So let's explore tactile transition together. In our project, we have used a method called focus group interviews, in which the participants discuss a topic together, reflect upon it, and share their experiences. And we have conducted 4 focus group interviews in 4 countries, in Norway, England, Sweden, and the Netherlands. We had 20 participants, male and female, from 28 to 70 years old. We had people with who were speaking sign language, tactile sign language, and spoken language, so a mix of languages. A short workshop was also included in all of the programs, which included relaxing and energizing exercises to share some experience on body awareness. So now, moving on. We will share 10 quotes connected to the 10 markers that Femke just told you about. And these quotes are connected to the focus group interviews in Norway, Sweden, and the Netherlands. So I'm soon going to give the microphone to Monica, Femke, and Anne Marte, but I want to tell you a little bit about the model number 1 first. As Femke said, this first model is about the somatosensory system and how the bodily tactile impressions are processed and how these are made conscious. This model describes what happens when we receive tactile information through bodily impressions. The markers distinct between sensation, perception, and cognition. 3 different stages of the process of becoming aware of bodily tactile impressions. So, Femke.
Yeah, no, it's okay, thank you. A first quote about the first marker, tactile sensations. I could feel a little breeze that makes me wonder whether someone is there. It also depends on the room I'm in. I have a small kitchen, so when somebody walks in, I do feel it. It's a different story in the larger kitchens.
Monica.
It's Anne Marte.
Oh, yeah. Anne Marte.
We're interchanging.
Yeah, we are. This is a quote from the tactile perception. When I'm walking and I think I'm getting close to the edge of the stairs, and then I get a little unsure, I feel my way with my foot. Then I switch from seeing to feeling with my feet.
This one is about tactile cognition. It's with a tactile sense I find my way around. It's a kind of stored in my head and my body.
Then we're going to move on to model 2. The second model is about body representation and body awareness. It deals, just like model 1, with how sensory impressions are processed through the sensory receptors and onto different cognitive functions in the brain. But unlike model 1, model 2 also addresses how the body as a whole is perceived in the brain based on the information that the brain has access to. This is called body representation. The model describes 2 types of body representation. One concept is body image, which is about the perception of one's own body and which includes attitudes and perceptions. The second concept is body schema, which is about awareness of one's own body and its body parts and how they behave in the space we move in. So I will now give the word to Anne Marte.
Yes. This is a quote regarding body schema. Noticing that when I sit here and think about what the difference is from now and then, it is more that I feel my way around, touch the worktops, touch my children, touch everything that I, in a way, am close to.
This one is about body image. What happened was that I suddenly discovered my body. I feel where it begins and ends. Before, it was only my head, and then came my feet. I had no sense of what was in between. The process I went through then taught me to find my body.
And the final marker of the second model, about mental effort and mental fatigue. I noticed the past years that the cooking is more difficult for me. Sometimes I don't feel like it. If I have been working until 5 o'clock, I don't feel like cooking, so I procrastinate. This often results in me eating unhealthy again. So I've changed my working schedule. I now work till 3 o'clock, so that I still have some energy left to spend in the evenings.
The third and final model is the ecological system model. The model describes the individual in relation to the outside world, how the individual interacts with the surrounding societies in different ways and at different levels. The model is dynamic, and the different parts interact with each other in a constantly ongoing process. Relationship refers not only to the ties that exist to other people, but also to institutions, networks of various kinds, and to the society as a whole. Relationship also refers to culture, norms, and values in the society in which the individual lives. So, I will for the last time give the word to Femke and Anne Marte and Monica. Anne Marte.
This quote is related to the marker interrelations among various personal factors, individual level. In the beginning, I'm sorry, my voice is not, yeah. In the beginning, I took a course where you had to practice how to put your needs into words. It was a terribly uncomfortable course, but it has been one of the courses I've had that I've really had good use for. You kind of got over that hump of telling people that you actually have bad eyesight and hearing and such. And explaining, get a bit of practice explaining how you would like people to contact you, what they should say and do, and so on.
And then the marker on interpersonal relationships, so the interpersonal level. When I want to look someone in the eye, I need to know their height. I often ask that person whether I can put my hand on their shoulders. That way I know where they sit and how tall they are.
And then the marker about service programs and regulation in institution, network, and community level. They look at your hearing and how to improve it. They look at your vision and how to improve it. But the tactile then, nobody talks about that. We want to stress that the knowledge exists. There are audiologists and visual therapists, but tactile therapists, where are they? And the last one, it's about norms and standards in the society, in the societal level. The norm in the society is to hear and see well. But we forget to talk about the tactile sense. Many professionals don't think about how important the tactile sense is for us who have deafblindness. It's easily overlooked. We have to break that norm.
Yeah. We hope this showed you some of the stories regarding tactile transition from lived experience of people with acquired deafblindness. So, Liz.
So next slide, please, Stina. And everybody's thinking, where is the next slide? Because what you've got is a blank screen. And this is what happened in one of the interviews in the UK. That when we talked to the lady we were interviewing, she couldn't express any of the quotes that you have there. She wasn't bodily aware. She didn't think about how she used her body. She did it. I watched it happen every day. But that personal recognition of how she used her tactile senses wasn't something that she'd ever given any conscious consideration to. A year later, next slide please, Stina, this is a lady I'm in regular contact with. We started to talk, and this is the conversation that I had with her. I didn't realise, I didn't understand it. When we talked about this, it didn't make sense. Then I started to think about it. People kept asking me if I wanted a long cane. People kept asking me if I wanted mobility training. That's what made me think about how I get around. Next slide, please, Stina. I talked to my daughter. She didn't get it either. We talked about the things that we do together, what we share in the house, and how she tells me what she is doing and where she is. Slowly, I began to think about all those things you asked me, and it started to make sense. I started to understand how I use my body, how I use my hearing, how it all comes together. I get it. And that's why we are part of the Tactile Transitions team. That's why, as a team, we're passionate about developing this understanding and making it available, because it works every single day for all of us. But unless we understand it more, we can't pass on the benefits and the understanding for the people who use it most. Back to you, Stina.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. And now I think we have some time for questions and reflections from the audience.
Yeah. Okay. Marta has the mic.
Thank you. My name is Paul. I live with my wife, who is deafblind. And my question has nothing to do with my wife, but I'm just trying to understand. Penny uses the tactile sense enormously. She's using it right now with interveners communicating with it around the house. She feels her way around. Various interveners have ways of communicating with her on her back as she is presenting from lecterns and so on so that she can gauge crowd reactions and so on. My confusion is you talk about tactile transitions. I see, you've been talking about the tactile sense and tactile perception and so on and so on. Where are the transitions? Why did you use the word transitions in the title of your talk?
That's a difficult question.
I like the difficult questions. Thank you. No, yes, it's a question we mentioned during the analysis, of course. In a way, it's difficult to catch the transition. However, in the quotes we have been sharing, I think you can find some transitions. When it's about, being more not only in the head, that you have a body in between your head and your toes, that's about transition. But also we wanted to share on, for example, the energy management, that you're so tired you cannot cook anymore. So you can look at that from, the big perspective, activity. But within this research, it was also about being able to use your tactile sense, because you need it when you acquired deafblind, to cook. And she decided to change her working schedule to make sure she had some energy left, so she wouldn't eat as unhealthy as normally after 5 o'clock working. This is about transition. So in that way, I think we did our best to highlight a transition, but to really find transition in people's quotes, you have to close read and listen carefully, and that's only possible to a bit during a presentation like this.
This is Liz speaking. So Caroline, the lady that I quoted at the end, who began with the blank slide, the transition for Caroline was, I don't think about any of this stuff, I just do it. I'm not aware of how I use my body and how I talk to my daughter. The transition was, I understand, I'm starting to think about how I might save some energy, do things differently, how I use my body, how that helps me, how that might help me with long cane training, something that I've never wanted to do because I didn't think that I used my body in that way. So there's a whole section around. The transition is different for each individual, but it's about the change. Well done. Paul, wait 1 second till Marta gets to you with the microphone. Thank you.
So if I understand correctly, you're really talking about the evolution of the sensory, the conceptual, and the behavior. It's like how an individual would evolve in their understanding and use of the tactile sense in their new world of acquiring deafblindness. And I guess the reason for my confusion is I met Penny when she was already, for lack of a better word, thoroughly deafblind. And so that she was already ensconced in her way of doing things. And so I guess I never saw that development. I just had to jump in and learn it and I guess that was for me a transition.
Yeah. Well, I do like just to add to you, because as we stretched ourselves, I would like to stretch you and the whole audience with you, because it's not only about awareness. And we showed you on one of the first slides, it's about awareness and consciousness. And yes, you do need awareness to know what's going on. And when you're aware, you can use it. But it's not only about awareness, it's also about training. And awareness is one of the key topics of this research project because it starts with awareness, and awareness starts with observation. But when you observe how important the tactile sense is for deafblind people, and the tactile sense at large, so also connected to proprioceptive sense, like in the body image, then you also understand why it's so extremely important to build this tactile library, to use the interconnections between the tactile sense, the visual sense, the auditive sense, all the senses. So it's not just about getting to understand a little bit better understanding, but it's also about realizing the importance and really get to know how to reach the potential of this sense. But to get there, we need research like this, because without research like this, we will not get there, we will not get the steps, we will not have the framework to do it. But it's way more than just awareness.
Yeah, I have a question. So my first question, great presentation, first of all. Yeah, I think that's so important, as you mentioned, about tactile and touch. It's beneficial for everyone who's deafblind. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, everyone. My name's Ryan Olis. Yeah. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I think some people don't recognize how important that tactile touch is. It's so beneficial for everyone. So my question is, people in general are very sensitive to touch, not only just deafblind people. So how can we all encourage and educate other people to be open to that touch and communicating with that tactile sense? Because it is so important. And, you know, it seems like in society, it's not really appropriate, that sense of touch. And so, you know, I think it's not really appropriate to touch people, as you mentioned, like touching someone beside you on the bus. But, you know, for us deafblind people, we really do depend on that touch. And so, you know, how do we navigate that cultural difference? Because there is such a perspective difference between, you know, us deafblind people who really rely on that tactile touch. Yeah, so that would be my first part of my question. And then what you mentioned about that, that body and cognition sense relation, I'm wondering about if you did any research in relation to communication and how that tactile piece relates to language, tactile language. Yeah, because there really is that language through touch. So is there any research on that, the tactile language for communication and, pro-tactile? Thank you.
We'll just have a fight about who's going to answer that one. It's Liz. Okay, I don't want to stand in front of you all. I'm going to take the last part of your question first, Ryan, because that was the easy one to answer. We deliberately didn't focus on tactile communication, so not formal communication, because there is a lot of growing research into tactile communication, particularly formal research. This was an approach that was much more holistic, and that was very deliberate. So whilst communication is part of that, it's not the focus of what we're doing. How do we encourage the wider understanding of touch? How do we encourage the wider use of touch? Oh gosh, no. Keep asking me that question for the rest of the conference and I'll try and answer it. And Femke's just appeared, which means she's going to try and answer it.
Yeah, I just like the mic, you know. Both questions are beautiful. And to the first question, what I like so much within being a quiet deafblind myself is that this research gives us a language. It's not only a framework, but it's a language. And it's a different language than, you know, the language between different perspectives at large. You know, I'm acquired deafblind, the other person is not. We have different perceptions. We know that. All of us in this room know that. And then we can start talking about it. And as I told you before, we started with, how are you making your coffee, etc., etc. But then still, it's this conversation that, what is it that we actually mention? What is behind it? So this research is really explicating on what's behind it, how extremely, how would you say it, refined the tactile sense is, and how it is connected to our body, to ourself, how it's connected to how we relate to other people. And we can talk about that in a philosophical way, but this research project gives us a language that all of us can understand and start thinking about it and listen differently to the stories we exchange. So maybe, and that's what I hope, to your first question, this can be a really small first stepstone in finding that language.
Ryan, again, those are great answers, and I really just also recognize that when we're born, we intuitively rely on touch. We don't first rely on our sight and our hearing as infants. We rely on touch. That's the first thing we do. That's how we communicate from birth. So it is just so important. You know, it's much more important than visual and hearing. You know, because it's the first thing we experience. So thank you for your answers.
And we have 2 more questions on the left side.
Just
Back of the room, there is
yeah, she's going around. Just a very quick comment. Femke mentioned we were thinking about how do you make a cup of coffee, and she said that one of the luxuries we had, because this didn't begin as a formal research project, was that we spent a year being able to talk about things like how do you make a cup of coffee. Now that sounds really silly, doesn't it? But analyze all the steps involved in making a cup of coffee. How many of you in the room do some of that without watching what you're doing, without seeing what you're doing, without thinking about it? Do you pick up the water in the kettle and you know how much water there is in there just by the feel? Yes? Some people are nodding, some people are shaking their head, but those are the steps, those are the building blocks that began this work, when we understood that we all use our tactile perception in that way to build a picture. And that's where we began.
Hi, I'm Sue Graham. I am from Greater Toronto area, and I'm a parent of a child with Charge syndrome. He's 16 years old, and so he's congenitally deafblind. He relies on a lot of tactile, especially, and he's very tactile sensitive. He loves it. Like, he likes the, you know, the whole, like, in the womb, like, to be wrapped. He's very content with weighted stuff, and lately, I'm just picking up an example of what he's doing, and so he's doing negative behaviors like tactile, like in a sense of self-mutilation, like in the gums. He's pulling, like, and I keep his nails super short anyway, and I don't know how he does it. Like, where there's a will, there's a way. But he picks at his gums, so it's like to the point where there's one tooth is actually loose, is permanent, and I'm afraid he's going to lose his teeth. So how do I transition him out of this negative behavior and into a positive using tactile? And tactile does work. Like, I'm telling you, like, during COVID, he actually blossomed so much and accelerated. Like, he wasn't at the same place like he was for 10 years. He was learning the numbers for 10 years, but he knew it 10 years ago. He has Charge syndrome, and he's smart, and he just likes to stay there. He doesn't want to be challenged. So what I found it that when he has an iPad, for example, like during online learning, he touched something. Like, I found this out, like, it was like kind of, I guess by accident, I guess. But he touched the object. Let's say he's doing color red. He'd touch it, and sometimes I would have him trace on the iPad the word red, not just touch it, but R-E-D, and then I touch his red shirt. And it just, like, it was like Helen Keller and water, that moment. Like, it was huge, and the tactile thing. So I'm like, I gotta really, like, lean into this. And I just want to tell people, am I talking too loud?
Oh,
I
I'm
lip
sorry.
read,
I
and that's
talk
like
really
machine
fast.
gun
I am
fire.
Really, I am really bad at this. I'm sorry. I talk fast, and I get nervous. I talk faster.
Everybody does it.
I'm sorry. I'm a fast talker. Naturally, it's really bad. I'm sorry. I guess I'm just trying to find a way to transition out of a negative behavior, a self-mutilating behavior, into something positive before it becomes even more of a bad habit. And I don't know what to do. And do you have an online resource or do you have a book?
Monica? No, says Monica.
No, there is no book about this, but you talk about the chewing gum? No, it's gums. Yeah, gums. Yeah. Yeah, and he has charge? Yes. Yeah, and it's common that the person do that. So then you can find some other way to chew in other...
No, but he's not doing it to chew. He's taking his
Oh, okay.
and removing his gum, like the part that's connecting the tooth. He's removing it so it's
Okay.
I don't know what to do.
Okay.
You will guess that neither do we at this point. Maybe come and talk to us. We'll explore it. We don't have answers up here now, but come and talk to us. We'll explore it. Yeah.
So this is Marta speaking. There is 1 minute left. I don't know if that's time for a super quick question, but I don't think there's such a thing as a super quick question, but we're going to try it anyways. If everybody up on the panel is okay with that? Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm Gratja. I'm from the Netherlands, and thank you for your presentation. We all talked about the touch, and I think tactile is more than that. And I want to thank you also for mentioning the body awareness. I think that is one of the most important things. Not only touch, it starts in your body. When you know what is your body, when you know where your body is in the space, that is also tactile. And I think that can be trained. And for me, as deafblind person, I recognize that I don't have to use my cane if I know where I'm in the body, where I'm in the space, and that is also tactile transition.
Yes, thank you so much. And you're not only a quite deafblind, but also a great friend, and we have great conversations about this. And I recall and it's not part of the research project, I recall one conversation, and you were telling me that you couldn't hear something on YouTube on your cell phone, and then you were realizing when you put your hand on it, you could feel the vibrations. And when you felt the vibrations, then you started to better hear what was being said. And those are the kind of conversations like, okay, I did this, I figured it out. Why is this happening? Why is it helping? It's helping, but why? And then we've figured out, also with all the research and all the curiosity we share, that because the vibrations give you this, flow of the conversation, and it helps you to connect to what is being hearing with a top-down reasoning, so basically filling in the gaps. It's easier for your auditive system to fill in the gaps using your, in this way, tactily bodily system. So just to give you this, because I love it so much that you share, to give you this kind of information, this kind of stories really bring you to, the research solutions that can help out so much. So I really would encourage everyone, as we did over the last few years, to start talking like this. Take time, take a glass of wine or whatever with it, and start talking about this kind of stuff. And don't think about research, about understanding, just use your curiosity, because that is the common ground we share.
Thank you so much for listening. Here's our contact information if you have more questions. And you can download the Swedish report on this link, and more reports will come in the future.
So this is Marta speaking. Thank you, panel. It was an amazing session. I'm sure you're going to be approached many times afterwards. And as a thank you, we do have some gifts for you, which I will pass on. And please start making your way to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.